The law of demand states that as price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, and as price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. That results in a downward sloping curve that looks like this. The law of supply is the opposite. When price goes up, quantity supplied also goes up, and as price goes down, quantity supplied will go down. That will result in an upward sloping curve like this. There are a few factors that can shift the entire demand curve. These include a change in population or income, expectations, tastes in advertisements, or related goods. In the case of related goods, they can move the demand curve in a certain direction depending on whether they're substitutes or complements. There are also shifters of supply. The amount of producers, input prices, technology, government policies like taxes and subsidies, and expectations all determine where the supply curve lies on the graph. This point right here in the middle is called equilibrium, and if any of these factors change, the curve will shift and it will result in a new equilibrium price and quantity. If both curves shift at the same time, this is called a double shift, so either price or quantity will remain indeterminate because it depends on the amount of change in each curve. In this area, there's a difference between what consumers are willing and able to pay and what they actually pay. This is called consumer surplus. In order to find the total consumer surplus, you would just take the area of this triangle right here. Similarly, below the equilibrium price, this is the difference between what producers are willing and able to sell their products for and what they actually sell them for. That is called producer surplus. If you want to find the total surplus, you would just take the area of this entire triangle right here. Another thing to note is that the price is not always at equilibrium. It can be below, which would result in a shortage. This means that quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded. So if this quantity right here was 5 and this one was 15, there would be a shortage of 10. Similarly, if you have a price above equilibrium, then that would result in a surplus of 10. In both cases, producers tend to raise or lower the prices, so it will tend to go back to equilibrium. Another concept that has to do with demand is the concept of elasticity. Elasticity is the degree to which quantity demanded or supplied reacts to a change in price. If a demand curve is inelastic, it looks like this, and it is insensitive to a change in price. An example of this would be something like gasoline. Everybody needs it and it has no substitute, so an increase in price would not affect the quantity demanded on a large scale. Or if the price of gasoline decreased, people wouldn't rush to buy more gasoline, so the quantity demanded would stay relatively the same. If a demand curve is elastic, it looks more like this. An example might be coffee from a certain coffee shop. If the price of the coffee increased, people could just buy it somewhere else, so the quantity demanded from the first shop goes down drastically. Goods and services that have more available substitutes are usually more elastic. The curve can be perfectly inelastic, meaning that any price will result in the same quantity demanded, or it can be perfectly elastic, meaning that any change in price above or below the curve will result in zero quantity demanded for the product.